Hello, this is Naoki Yoshida, producer and director of Final Fantasy XIV. Well, that's not me, I'm reading the article. Hello everyone, I am Jmulls, and we have an update on the Forked Tower situation in Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail! So, what's going on? What's happening? Well, in patch 7.2.5, Final Fantasy XIV released the Occult Crescent. It has a big raid in it that quite a few people wanted to do. It's called the Forked Tower. However, actually getting into the Forked Tower turned out to be rather complicated for a lot of people. You couldn't just go in with the people you specifically wanted to go in with. You had to wait for a weather condition on the Occult Crescent as well. And you also had to, collect these ciphers around the map. But it allowed other people that weren't in your group to just, be thrown into the mix. And when you're trying to progress, when you're trying to do difficult content, having random people there can muddy up the waters a bit. It was just a smorgasbord of weird decisions. However, with the letter from the producer live for patch 7.3, they talked about some changes they're going to do in response to the feedback they got for the Occult Crescent and for Forked Tower. And this is a blog post on Final Fantasy XIV's Lodestone, where they detail what they're doing and the timeline of these changes. So let's go over them and see how they're responding here. Hello, this is Naoki Yoshida, producer and director of Final Fantasy XIV. Firstly, I would like to thank the community for their supportive comments following the recent letter from the producer live. During the broadcast, I spoke about the additional systems we will be introducing in relation to the Forked Tower. We have since decided to implement a portion of these updates in advance, during an emergency maintenance on all worlds. Please allow me to summarize the details and explain our reasoning behind this decision. We like communication around here. Cool. Let's see. Let's see, I've already read this. Planned changes. The following changes will be introduced as part of the emergency maintenance. 1. Bullet point. The ability to enter the Occult Crescent instance with a pre-formed alliance of up to 48 players. 2. Bullet point. Allowing auroral mirages to generate sooner after the Occult Crescent instance has loaded. Okay, so those are the changes. I like the structure of this, post, because I like when they talk about the reason they're doing stuff. And you can see, we get into it. Intentions behind the changes. As stated during the PLL, the update required to improve the Forked Tower experience would comprise several key elements. If you're wondering what PLL means, by the way, it's just the live letter. So the stream they did in the lead up to 7.3. 1. Bullet point. The ability to enter the Occult Crescent instance with a pre-formed alliance of up to 48 players. 2. Bullet point. Allowing auroral mirages to generate sooner after the Occult Crescent instance has loaded. 3. Improvements to the cipher offering UI. 4. Delaying auroral mirage generation until an active critical encounter has ended. And further down the line, after additional deliberation and discussion, we plan on further expanding the system with updates such as 5. Enabling exclusive access to the Occult Crescent instance for a set time when joining with a pre-formed alliance. We believe these combined changes will function in unison to improve the Forked Tower experience. However, given the outsized impact of 1, the ability to enter the Occult Crescent instance with a pre-formed alliance of up to 48 players, even in isolation, we have chosen to prioritize its implementation. Furthermore, to alleviate the issue of players waiting for prolonged periods to access the Forked Tower due to the time taken for an auroral mirage to generate after the Occult Crescent instance loads, we will also be implementing 2, allowing auroral mirages to generate sooner after the Occult Crescent instance is loaded in advance. The remaining changes listed above will be implemented in patch 7.3 as previously discussed, along with other minor adjustments and updates. Please accept my apologies for the delay. Now, ordinarily, I would now talk about what I think about their reasoning and the logic behind it, but they kind of go into it. So let's just continue reading. We can't give a book report without actually reading the whole book, now can we? Well, unless we have Spock notes, and I guess that's kind of what this video is when you think about it. But I'm reading the whole article, Comment down below with a better metaphor. Let's see who's actually better than me at this. Risks associated with early implementation. At present, fundamental implementation for patch 7.3 is complete, and we have entered the adjustment and refinement phase for graphical elements, systems, and battle mechanics. In parallel, we are proceeding with large-scale QA in preparation for release. To avoid significant impact on the schedule, we had initially planned to implement changes 1 and 2 in patch 7.3, those being the ability to enter the Occult Crescent instance with a preformed alliance of up to 48 players, and 2, allowing Aurora Mirages to generate sooner after the Occult Crescent instance is loaded. However, when evaluating our development and QA capacity to release a potential emergency maintenance update, it became apparent we would be able to do so with minimal effect to our schedule. Rest assured that there will be no impact on the release of patch 7.3 as a result of this advanced update. It should be noted that the planned emergency maintenance update may introduce some technical issues. Oh joy. However, we determined that the benefits of implementing these changes in a timely manner outweigh the minor risks involved, and will do our utmost to ensure the update is released in a stable state. The current release schedule for the update is as follows: Thursday, July 3rd, 2025, one day after the posting of this video, or as soon as possible thereafter. Although we are aiming for a July 3rd release, this may be pushed back should additional testing be required to ensure stability. Once the schedule has been confirmed, we will make a separate announcement via the Lodestone. We ask for your patience while we work on these improvements, and thank you for your continued support. Naoki Yoshida, again not me, Final Fantasy XIV producer and director. Okay, let's talk about it. Look, let's not kid ourselves here. I don't think these changes are, like, big enough or, like, systemic enough to really move the needle on people's opinions of the Occult Crescent overall. However, I do think they show some promise to future potential direction. I think what this shows is a willingness to respond in a timely manner to player feedback, and also a willingness to not necessarily just wait for patch days, which used to be a perception for Final Fantasy XIV, that if you wanted to wait for player feedback to come into account, you would have to wait a patch or two and wait for patch days specifically, instead of something quicker coming out. Whether or not that was actually true, but that was the perception, at least from my experience with a lot of people. I think their reasoning and justification for the things they are prioritizing for this emergency maintenance update to implement into the game, I kind of agree with. Yeah, allowing people to enter the Occult Crescent instance with a preformed alliance of up to 48 players, while also allowing Aurora Mirages to generate sooner after the Occult Crescent instance is loaded, that sound like the stuff you should prioritize. And it's also not like we're waiting months and months for the other changes to come online either. It's like 7.3 is only about a month away, so it's not even that long. It's just they're expediting the really important changes, in my opinion, for right now. Now, granted, I don't think, again, like I said before, this really changes the needle on people's perception and reaction to the Fork Tower. What it does is at least streamline or make the actual act of getting into the Occult Crescent and then getting into the Fork Tower not as much of a perceived pain in the butt as it was before. Now, when you're actually in the Fork Tower, I don't really see any of this changing perceptions, because it's largely addressing how to get into the Fork Tower, not actually when you're in there. Now, I don't see this actually changing people's perceptions of the Fork Tower itself, because these are just changes to smooth out the process of entering the Fork Tower. Not like we're going to make a normal mode for the Fork Tower. I think their reasoning for that was alluded to in the live letter. It's probably just not worth it right now, with the perception for the Occult Crescent and Fork Tower being what it is right now, to set aside all this time to develop a normal mode for it, or at least an easier mode for the Fork Tower, instead of just saying, okay, let's just like take a knee and run out the clock on this. Let's just fix the things that are easily fixable right now, and then focus all of our time and energy on the next iteration of this content. In the long term, that's probably for the best, because realistically, especially with cost having been brought up, would anyone really be happy or satisfied if future content that is still to come out in, say, 0.3, 0.4, or 0.5 was potentially delayed, or God forbid, just scrapped because they wanted to make a normal mode for this raid, balance it, and test it, I don't really see that going over well. So it's a bit of a lose-lose situation at this point in time, I imagine. It doesn't necessarily make anything particularly great, but it does address a large concern people had with the system overall, and I think, in the grand scheme of things, this is probably the smart decision to make. It's not going to win you much favorable PR right now, but again, in the long term, I think this will probably pay off. Now, I say probably because it does depend on the actual execution of the next zone and the next raid we get for the Occult Crescent. Because if they come out and they're just stinkers again, like, you know what I mean? Or we could have a situation like we had with Zadnor, where when it came out, a bunch of people, myself included, very quickly were cognizant of the fact that they took player feedback into account there. Heck, I remember a system where they pretty much just took it from some dude on Twitter, which was really funny because they didn't even change the name of the system. But when you went from the first zone in Bosja to Zadnor, sure, it was still largely the same thing, right? At least personally speaking, I was appreciative of all the player feedback they took into account with the little design changes that happened when we got to Zadnor. I'm hoping something similar can happen for when we get to the, I think they call it the North Horn, the second zone for the Occult Crescent. Because if we stroll up there, and there's better fate design and variety and balance, Phantom Job executions are a little bit more interesting. They do what they already said they're going to do, if I recall correctly, and actually have a normal and a savage version of the raid. And they have even more kick-ass critical encounters, because that was one of the few things I thought was really good about the Occult Crescent that we already have. And if they make the rewards better, even though that's like, a subjective thing and a really subjective thing at that, because people just like different aesthetics. Personally speaking, I didn't like the rewards we got from the Occult Crescent so far. None of them really make me want to do the content to get them, besides the Warrior Relic one, yeah? Despite all the crap I talked about the Relic weapon, I still got the Warrior one because it looks awesome. Just a giant lava axe. Dude, I'm a simple man sometimes. But I've talked about, I don't think the Occult Crescent is necessarily, far away from being a well-received overall piece of content. It's just a few design choices here and there that I think can easily be rectified or addressed when it comes to a new zone and a new raid that we get with that zone. Because, if they did go ahead and do a normal mode for Fork Tower, I don't see that really shifting anything for people. It's you either like Occult Crescent or you hate it right now, and I don't see PR, generally speaking, shifting one way or the other by trying to actually fix the mechanical state of the Fork Tower besides the changes they're doing. The smarter play is to just, like I said before, take a knee and run out the clock, wait for the next zone of the Occult Crescent, and really take player feedback into account there. Just fix actually getting into the Fork Tower, which is what they're doing, or at least massively addressing it. Do that, and then move on to future content. Because I think, like I said before, more people would be upset if future content gets delayed or is compromised because they had to set aside a lot of time to develop something whose public perception was already largely tarnished for a lot of people. Just in terms of ratios, I don't see the real benefit for Square Enix to do that. It would please a couple of people, but I think just having way better content in the future and trying to ride out the wave that is Dawntrail and just get to 8.0 in the long term, probably for the best. Yeah, it doesn't completely fix all the grievances people have with the modern state of Final Fantasy XIV overnight. A lot of those changes aren't going to be addressed overnight. So yeah, while I don't see this really generating a ton of hype or good publicity for Square Enix or anything, what I think it does show is a willingness to take player feedback still into account, but also not to just wait for patch day. And if things are big enough issues, they're willing to expedite changes, even when we're so close to a new patch, and get them out the door. And I think that's a good thing. But, if you want to know something that I don't think is a good thing, you should go check out my video covering the new store glamour sets for Final Fantasy XIV. It's a doozy. Thank you all for tuning in, stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you liked the video and want to see more content. I know I would appreciate it. You can follow me on TikTok, Twitch, and Twitter at JMullsG. I have a Discord in the description down below. Feel free to swing on by and talk to all the jabronis that are in there, including myself. Stay safe, have a great day, leave a comment down below with your thoughts, your opinions on the Fork Tower, these changes, and what you want to see in the second zone for the Occult Crescent. I would love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions and hear your perspectives. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again. Nah.